extraordinary individuals in our community, and so grateful that they share their gifts with us in such awesome ways. So grateful for Tina, grateful for Bill, grateful for Monica, grateful for our pledge committee. Thank you, Rick, again. Thank you, Michael and Cindy, Harvey, who we'll hear from later, Kathy, Joan, who helped us wrap the boxes this week, and if I'm missing anybody else, I'm sorry. So the power of the gift is our theme for this month, and today we're celebrating the gift of connection. And we're gifted a compass, and I love the compass as a spiritual symbol, this idea that I have a spiritual compass. And do you resonate with that idea that you have a spiritual compass? Yes. And it both pleases me and annoys me that the spiritual compass, although it never tells me where to go or what to do, it does tell me how to get there. It's kind of a strange paradox. It never tells me where to go, but it does tell me how to get there. And my spiritual compass has come most serenely for me when faced with something or a choice that I don't know what to do. Maybe it's a struggle in what to do about a relationship, or what to do about a job, or what to do about an investment, or what to do about something going on within. The spiritual compass doesn't tell me yes or no, or leave or stay. It does tell me, however, what I value, and what is most sacred to me, and what is most important to me. So although it doesn't tell me yes or no, it does tell me to love. Although it doesn't tell me stay or go, it does say be honest, be in integrity. Although it doesn't tell me orange juice or apple juice, it does tell me to be authentic. There's something about having a strong spiritual compass that helps put our choices in accordance with our heart's path. And in my experience, when I do that, I can't go wrong. I don't think the spiritual compass is something that God plants in us, like the pledge campaign planted the compass in our gifts today. I don't think it's something that's even the result of a good religious upbringing. I think it's the result of our own spiritual connection. It's our own ability to cultivate our relationship with what is most valuable, sacred, and virtuous. When we have a sense of the sacred in our lives, we can use it in amazing ways. The other place that the spiritual compass has become so valuable for me is when I'm in a place of not knowing. Roger Teal, in his book, His Life is Joy, tells a very simple story about a little girl who was introduced to a very brand new doormat on the floor in her house. And she's used to walking a circle in this particular way, but this dang doormat is right there, and she stops and she looks at it, and she doesn't know what to do. She continues to stare on it, but she's unsure. She's never seen this thing before. And so she does what so many of us do when faced with the unknown. She breaks down and cries. It's analogous to us when we're facing something like a challenge in a relationship, or a challenge in a job, or facing our own mortality, whatever it is. Sometimes we don't know what to do, and our only reaction is just to break down. And this is where, in my life, the spiritual compass has become so valuable, because it reminds me that even though I may not know what's going to happen or what the truth is, I have an understanding or consciousness enough that the truth is there, that there is a presence there that supports me, that there is a higher awareness, even if it isn't mine at the time. You know, I like to say that even when I'm confused, I try to be as clear as possible that I'm confused. That helps just a little bit. Ernest Holmes said something in his book, this thing called Life, that I admire. He said, to live in conscious communion with life, even for a short time, will convert fear into faith, our doubts into certainty, our hurt and sense of failure into something triumphant. Every man has a subliminal depth to his being. We can plant our feet firmly on this faith and realize that we are divine beings now. The choice is ours. Many of us are familiar with that metaphysical saying, be in the world but not of it. You heard that before? Be in the world but not of it. It's one of those things where I go, yeah, sure. And then I think about it and go, well, what the hell do they mean by that? What is that supposed to mean? Be in the world but not of it. And it's especially espoused in the Christian tradition to relay the idea that earth and our earthly experience isn't all that there is. So live in the earth, but recognize your connection to a divine Father, to a divine presence, and live your life from that. To put it in a different or perhaps more pragmatic way, live fully in the world, in the joy of it and in the sick of it, in the triumph and in the challenges. But remember that you live and are a part of a greater cause than any effect that can take place on this earth. To live not in accordance with the dramas or the effects of our lives, but to rise up and respond to them from a greater cause of our being is to sometimes bring love where there is only anger, or to bring forgiveness where there is only grievance, or to bring healing and wholeness where there's only been a sense of absolute lack and separation. Live in the world of effects, but be of a greater cause. Don't be a reaction, be a response. When we have that sense of spiritual connection, the gift of that connection is that even when something seems totally absent, because of our awareness that we are a part of something greater, we can be a very medium in which that divine quality and that divine grace can come forth. You know, in our philosophy, we like to say, God is all there is. And that's another one that I like, and then I go, what? Wait a second. We say, God is all there is. And as much as I like to say that, it's hard for me to live in that on a regular basis. It's so easy for me to live life with the saying that the effect is all there is. Someone says something and I get upset, and upset is all there is. I say something stupid to somebody and I regret it, and so regret is all there is. It possesses me, I don't possess it. I get afraid about something I don't understand, something I'm not sure what's going to happen, and that anxiety becomes all that there is. It's my spiritual connection, it's my anchor point that helps me get back to this idea that God is all there is, which to me means that the values that I hold most dear and sacred are more valuable and everlasting than any this too shall pass experience that may be in front of me. And that is always more the truth of who I am than any experience or drama I have convinced myself of in everyday life. Holmes says, we never have to surrender anything that really belongs to life. We surrender only that which is opposed to it. So remembering our connection to a deeper source means letting go of all the other stuff that we don't need anyways. When I can refine, rediscover, replant myself in the ground of my trust and knowingness, I can stop living in accordance with negative stories and judgments and limited thinking about who I am, my relationships, and life around me. And I know it is much better to live in a sacred vision of my life than the twisted visions that I sometimes get caught up and entwined in. So what do we do when the spiritual compass isn't working? What do we do when it's ourselves that is on the fritz? To me, there's the most important thing that any of us can get out of the teachings that we espouse here as an individual spiritual practice. If we can get an individual spiritual practice, we can make our own way in the world because we have a consciousness of our own connection to what is sacred to us. And it's so valuable. Thank you, Craig. Did you do the Playhouse screen? found some way in your life that works to meditate for you, to pray for you, to practice forgiveness for you, to be in gratitude for you. These are the general spiritual practices that are taught at the mystical heart of every spiritual tradition. They're for all of us, and they're all about ourselves. That's why it works for everybody. It's not about making anybody else better than anyone else. Then, of course, there's connecting with nature. We're in a beautiful place to be by the ocean, or to go walk at the nature center, or to be a drive away from somewhere beautiful. And then, of course, there's those secular things that each of us has, those things that help you connect in a way that maybe they wouldn't help everyone else connect, whether that's surfing or being in your garden or playing with your grandkids, those things that all people do, but not always with the awareness that it connects them to a higher power, a higher way of being. What's so important, however, with those, and I invite you to think about what they are for them, is that we know that there are things that are plugging us into a greater mindfulness as opposed to trying to unplug us from mindfulness. You know, every once in a while I like to come home and fix a very strong drink. And I have that drink, but it is not to connect to a greater spirit. You know, it's in an attempt to numb myself. It's in an attempt to unplug myself. You know, and I do that sometimes with watching too much TV or going home and having a cookie followed by 5 more cookies, followed by I need to go out and buy more cookies, whatever it may be. But all of these things, and I'm not putting any of them down, but I know in my own experience I can use them not to be mindful, but to be mindless, to numb myself out. And often in working with people who have the complaint that I can't find the time to connect, I can't find the time for spiritual practice. The best technique is to take all those little escapes that we do throughout our day and just start slowly turning them into a mindful practice. It can still be a fun one, but something that connects us. It's so important to give ourselves time to be in our lives so that we can do our lives with heart and with soul, and not just in a mechanic process. If you want to do something in that part of you that seems to dominate sometimes, that always wants to come first in the rat race of busyness and of accomplishment, and if it says to you, no, don't do that, what is that going to accomplish? Then you know you're doing the right thing, to connect to that greater source. I got a call from a friend of mine just a few months ago, and I still feel kind of bad about it. It was great to hear from him, but I was really busy, and he was really busy too, but he reached out and he shared mechanically all the things that were going on in his life, some of them really excitement, but he said so really monotone. I shared all the exciting things going on in my life, but I did it really mechanically and monotone, and all those things that we were used to doing together, like laughing or remembering or jabbing each other, none of that was there. There was no sense of connection. You get what you asked for? And when we hung up the phone, I wondered, you know, is this friendship done? Is that what's going on here? And I started laughing because that wasn't what it was at all. I was disconnected. I wasn't one with my source. And that's why these things that may seem trivial, but they involve our connecting to a greater source, assists us in so many wonderful ways. I love something very stern that the poet Rilke said. He said, if your daily life seems poor, do not blame it. Blame yourself. Tell yourself that you are not poet enough to call forth the riches. For to the Creator there is no poverty and no poor, indifferent place. I know in my own life when I'm in a state of boredom or of melancholy or of frustration, that it's not because of the things going on in my life, it's because of my own defective experience. It's because I have somehow become so convinced that reality is the way that I think it is true, that I'm experiencing the consequences of that reality tunnel that I live in. But all that I need to do is to, again, like Holmes says, surrender that system, surrender that story, and align myself with a greater narrative of my truth, with a greater understanding that I live in an infinite universe, that life itself is a miracle, and I can't experience one until I can see myself as one, until I can allow it to take place in a grander and more profound way in my life. Like we were talking about last week, one half of spirituality is individual, but the other half of it is in community. And that's why, for me, my favorite place to spiritually connect is just right here in this room, both within the walls and as this community expresses in so many different ways. I love the services we provide here. I love the classes we have here. I love our practitioners, our kids, all those things. But most importantly, my favorite way to connect with Spirit, even as much as I love my solitude, is people, is individuals. There's no greater sense of connection I get than the honor to look someone in the eyes, hear a little bit of their story, not too long, but to just get a glimpse into the heart of who they are. Because it affirms that the sacred does exist. It exists in that person. If I can see it in them, then I can see it in myself too. So I invite you while you're in this place, you don't have to do it today because it can seem awkward, someone might know what you're doing, but look a little more deeply into their eyes. Listen a little bit more intently on what they're saying. Focus a little bit more to be a little bit intimate in what you share and how you express yourself. And you will be participating in one of the greatest acts of communion and sacrament that they can be, the recognition of the divine in one another. We have so many profound people in our community. I was so touched this week around Christmas time last year. We had a family and members in our congregation that were having a really tough financial time. And we were able to help them. We were able to get them some money. We were able to do a collection of gift cards at Christmas. Many of you here gave to that family. So they were able to have a Christmas. I hadn't seen them in a little while, but they stopped by this week. They could only come by for a minute because they wanted to give me a check. And the check was for more money than we gave them. And I had a little spot on the memo that said, pay it forward. So it was so cool because it showed for this family a great balance that we need for true spiritual connection, especially in our community, in the outside world. The ability to say, yes, I need support. I need to receive. I need to be given to, whether that's financially or spiritually or just to be seen and witnessed. And to have that balance too. They didn't have to give us that money, but to recognize that they also want to support and be of service. And when we have those two things within congruence within ourselves, the ability to ask for what we need and to say yes to it, which can be the most courageous thing in the world, many of us know, and then to have the strength and the trust and the faith to give and reciprocate that. To quote from Howard Thurman, and I think our practitioner Julie quoted him last week, so we'll make a point of making him the hero of our pledge campaign. We'll do a Thurman quote each week. So Thurman, who was a great African-American spiritual leader of the last century and a mentor to Dr. King, he said, life moves at a deeper level than the objective and the data of our senses. We are most alive when we are brought face to face with the response of the deepest thing in us to the deepest thing in life. So we'll close with that question. What is the deepest thing in you? And what is the deepest thing that you find in life? And where do they connect? Where do you find that depth in another person or in a circumstance or in a place that inspires and reminds you of the depth in your own being? Go and be and do and have in that place. So I thank you for your time, everyone, this morning. Really great to be here.